Welcome to the Wednesday show. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We are talking trade today, giving you some buy lows and some sell highs. I want to talk about Anthony Richardson. I want to talk about Baker Mayfield, Brian Thomas, of course, Christian McCaffrey, and more. Would you guys like to play a little bit of Fantasy Feud to start the show?
Sure.
I'd love to.
You have to tell me honestly if you have prior knowledge of this category. It is simply the most added players in CBS Sports Leagues.
I haven't looked at it yet. So
okay, good. All right. So top 5 answers are on the board. Say your name to buzz in. Most added players.
Heath.
Go ahead, Heath.
Isaiah Likely.
He is number 3. Dave, you can guess for 2 or 1.
Most added players. Oh, I'm definitely not ready to play this. Is Jordan Mason one of the most added players?
Yes, he's number 5. Now, those are the 2 most added in the top 5 that are now the most rostered of that group. They're both rostered in 83 to 86% of leagues. But keep in mind, the most added means the highest change in roster percentage.
We include DSTs and kickers on this, do we not?
We do. Yeah.
So I think
I'll play.
I would eliminate any DSTs and kickers.
All right, fine.
Okay. Whatever.
Jeff
Wilson.
Heath is right. I will not eliminate any. Okay, sorry. So we have Likely 3, Jordan Mason 5. Who are you saying?
Jeff Wilson.
Well, Heath has to decide if he's passing or playing.
I'm clearly playing.
Go ahead.
Jeff Wilson is incorrect.
Awesome. Colts. Awesome. 0 for 2. And Demarcus Robinson.
That's correct. That's number 4. So we've got 3, 4, and 5. We need the top 2 most added players. Likely Robinson and Mason off the board. Top 2 most added.
Wow. This is really difficult. Colby Parkinson.
He's number 7. Not a bad guess. All right, Dave. Jamie's here as well. I wonder if he knows. But Dave, top 2 most added players are still on the board. If you get it, you win everything.
Chargers DST.
Oh! Dave wins. Congratulations.
So people are adding the Chargers over the Colts.
Well, Chargers are...
One of them is playing against the Panthers.
One of them is playing against Malik Willis.
Colts are 36% rostered. Chargers are now 67% rostered. And yes, a bigger roster bump. And number 1, Jamie, any idea who number 1 is? Most added player?
What were the other guesses?
Chargers are 2, Likely 3, Demarcus Robinson 4, Jordan Mason 5.
It can also be a kicker, Jamie.
Is it Baker?
It is Alan Lazard.
Oh, yeah.
2% to 31%. He is the most added player.
I saw him like some 15, 16, 17% bids.
Oh, I did. I bid 20% in the Dynasty League where he was available.
Really? All right. Well, yeah, not a lot of players.
You got to start 5 receivers in that league. There's nobody on waivers ever.
Right. So anybody who's got a pulse and can run a route is going to get a bid. Somebody asked me today, hey, should I drop Christian Watson for Demarcus Robinson? And then he listed all the players he had on his bench. And he had Lazard on his bench.
Right.
I think I'd rather drop Lazard than Christian Watson. I don't know if that's so crazy, but I'd rather do that if I'm going to make a move for Demarcus Robinson.
Who's going to be the second best receiver on the Jets?
Lazard.
Yeah, I don't know if there will be a good one. It'll be Lazard for now.
Probably Lazard. I mean, how many more weeks does it take before Garrett Wilson has more fantasy points on the season than Lazard?
As soon as he changes his jersey. All right, let's do some news and notes. Then we'll tell you the buy lows and the sell highs. I want to address J.K. Dobbins too, because he was 96% rostered in CBS leagues yesterday, but in Yahoo and ESPN, or maybe one of the two, I'm not sure if it was one or both, Dobbins is actually pretty available. So I did want to talk about that. Christian McCaffrey's day-to-day, it's not the calf as much as it's the Achilles. He has Achilles tendonitis. Now, apparently he could have played it. It had been a postseason game, but they are taking it easy with McCaffrey. Both Dolphins running backs missed practice on Tuesday. They've got the Thursday game against Buffalo, and we're going to talk extensively about that. We're going to preview that game in a little bit. Jake Ferguson could play this week, according to Jerry Jones. So when you hear that, Jamie, if you were going to do your waivers tonight, where would Brandon Cooks be in relation to Rashid Shaheed, Demarcus Robinson? What do you think?
Still second.
Behind
Shaheed.
Shaheed. Okay. Joe Burrow. Did anybody see Joe Burrow flexing his wrist? Anybody concerned about this?
Was he making an L?
No, I don't know if he could.
I don't know if that's something you do with your wrist. That's more of a thumb and finger thing.
Well,
You gotta like hold your wrist up though.
right. You need a brace for that. I don't know. I guess
2 hands to make an L. There it is.
and
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it necessarily impacted him. I didn't notice it impact him in the game, if that's what you're asking.
okay.
There were far more
what did
other
Marty
issues
tell us?
impacting him.
Marty told us that he's going to have some soreness.
He told us that in July, right? Late
Whenever
July,
he-
early August.
Yeah. The NFL is reviewing the lawsuit against Deshaun Watson. Carolina defensive lineman Derek Brown's out for the season. Steelers are preparing for Justin Fields to start this week. Colts cornerback Juju Brents, their best cornerback, he's on IR with a knee injury. They're at Green Bay this week, so shouldn't be an issue there, you wouldn't think. The Browns hosted tight end Irv Smith as David Njoku's hurt. Detroit signed kicker Greg Joseph. So if you have Jake Bates, just be aware they're bringing in some competition. And Jaylen Warren is healthy enough, according to Mike Tomlin. I don't think we can start Jaylen Warren with confidence right now. We've got more shows for you. You want more content? We've got them on CBS Sports Network Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Just check your cable box or whatever. I don't even know what to say anymore.
Check your local listings.
Exactly. Get your TV guide and see CBS Sports Network. Find it, or you can watch you can watch online, but CBS Sports Network Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Adam, we should also mention that those shows are available on YouTube within an hour, hours plural. I don't know, but they show up same day on YouTube.
YouTube.com/fantasy football today. Hit that subscribe button. When we get to 100,000 subscribers, we'll do a Q&A with 100 questions. Sunday morning, we had an amazing time. We had a great audience. So you join us on Sunday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern until kickoff. We're answering your start sit questions. That's pretty much all we're doing. YouTube.com/fantasy football today. And also you can watch, what time do you get going on HQ, Jamie?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. on CBS Sports HQ on Sundays. So if we were doing waivers over again, Jamie, would J.K. Dobbins have been the number one priority, and how much fab would you have used on him?
If he was available?
Yeah, because he wasn't available, and I don't remember if it was Yahoo or ESPN or both, but I got some emails, some tweets. He's 50% rostered here, whatever. In that scenario, where would Dobbins have been?
Number one. And he's number one for me this week. Yes, should be number one.
I said I'd use up to 70% of my fab on him. Is that too low? Too high?
I guess it depends. I mean, look, if he's available, Mason's available, Likely's available. You have a lot of probably other good players that are available. I wonder if like the Jaleel McLaughlins of the world, the Ty Chandlers of the world, guys that are going to be factors at some point down the road are available. So, do you want to spend all of your fab or the majority of your fab on Dobbins, who we know has a tough track record of staying healthy? That's the question you have to ask yourself. But yes, if you needed a running back for the foreseeable future, sure.
I think that's a good point. Like the reason that he was available more in 50% of leagues on a different site is because they have a lot of 8 and 10 team leagues where there's a lot of good players and will be a lot of good players available on the waiver wire.
Does that mean you should be more aggressive with your fab because it's less competitive? Like for a guy like Dobbins?
No, I wouldn't think so, because there's going to be good players available on waivers regularly.
Right, but you probably don't need to spend as much on those good players because they come up more frequently. This is
right. So you said, should you be more aggressive with your fab?
Yeah, like go get this guy because I can put $1 bids on players that in a 12-team league are going to go for like $8. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but you know what I'm saying? Is like good players pop up all the time. So in other words, if this were a 14-team league, and
if you think that J.K. Dobbins is like a league winner, then I guess so. Yes, I think like this. I'm glad the graphic is up right now, because while the production was completely and entirely in J.K. Dobbins' favor, like he had 40% of the team's rush attempts.
There's more than that. Almost all of his yards came on 2 carries, one of which involved a missed tackle basically at the line of scrimmage against the Raiders. And this week he's got an amazing opponent. He's taking on Carolina. They don't have Derek Brown. They're gonna get run all over. Both these guys, Dobbins and Gus, could end up having very good games. Dobbins is potentially going to finish as a top 12 running back this week. But I do worry about investing too much fab in somebody who could break down at any moment. And he's a little bit different. Like, we wouldn't say this about other running backs, younger running backs that don't have the track record that he has. And there's always the fear that he's going to be sharing with somebody. This week it might be Gus Edwards. 3 weeks from now it might be Kamani Vidal, because Gus Edwards doesn't look so good.
All right. Well, thank you for your thoughts on J.K. Dobbins. Listen, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back and we'll get into all the trade stuff. But before
maybe that's the move. I'm sorry to bust in on you, but maybe if you spend a lot of fab on Dobbins, spend $1 on Vidal, who's probably going to be on your waiver wire as well. Get two.
If you're in a 10-team league, you don't have the bench space to carry those two guys.
Well, but you'd like to have them. Like, if you're making the investment in Dobbins, you might as well go and.
I'd rather make the investment if it's a 10-team league. I'd rather make the investment in Dobbins and Ty Chandler.
Also,
an option. Well, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FANTASY. You're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10. Place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up on BetMGM. Quick break, buy low, sell high, and much more after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. All right, let's do some buy low, sell high. Heath, you want to kick it off with some buy lows, or one, or however many you want?
I'll give you one just to start, and I'll read a tweet that I just received. Following bad performances from Harrison Jr., Olave, and Metcalf, would you have any thoughts on starting Demarcus Robinson over one of them this week? People are reacting. Chris Olave, I think, though, is the guy. I'm just not worried about it all. It was kind of a fake game for the Saints. There were very few pass attempts, but not everyone who has Chris Olave, especially considering that he hasn't quite met the hype the last couple of years, feels that way. There is some genuine concern. So I'd be trying to buy on Chris Olave.
Would you sell Stefon Diggs for Chris Olave?
I would happily.
That would be an upgrade.
Dave, you want to give me a buy low?
I've got 5 buy lows. The first one I'll give you is Josh Jacobs. And I think people are kind of panicking because it took a couple of big runs for him, sort of like the Dobbins thing, just on a lower level against Philadelphia, for him to come through with just a modest fantasy point game. And now it's Malik Willis under center for Green Bay for the next 3 games, 4 games, who knows? And so I think people are kind of panicking on Jacobs. And so if you can get him, I'm thinking about the rest of season in mind. I think eventually that offensive line will get right. They'll have some easier matchups than Philadelphia and their behemoth D-line. Love will come back, and he'll be good.
Okay, Josh Jacobs. Jamie, you're up. Buy low.
I'm trying to find a tweet that somebody said they'd give us $100 to St. Jude's for.
Oh.
Here it is. To you and me, Adam, from Ryukin.
Okay.
2X. Says, I will donate to St. Jude $100. Jamie answers question. Someone dropped Kincaid to pick up Isaiah Likely. How much fab would you spend on Kincaid? So Kincaid's going to be the buy low candidate. So I'll reply to him, but until he makes the donation, probably spend 20%. I think that should do it to get Kincaid.
Really? I'm thinking like
50
to 60%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if he's dropped, who knows how competitive the league is, but I guess, maybe more. I'll say 30%. I'm not going to go crazy with it. The situation is going to get better. I mean, can't get worse than what it was. Is he going to live up to his status as a breakout player? Who knows? But I think as Buffalo's receiving core continues to evolve and develop and hopefully starts to produce, teams are not going to take away Kincaid as much as the Cardinals seem to do in that game last week. So I wouldn't give up on him, and I think he's going to have a big day Thursday night. If
Kincaid hit my waiver wire, I'd spend at least half my fab to get him. This is a 5th round pick that's sitting there.
Yeah.
And someone panicked on, and this is more of the overarching thing to take away from this is you can't panic after week 1. If you've got Olave and you're nervous, or Jacobs or Kincaid, you should hang on to these guys. You need to think about the whole season and not throw them away after one bad game. That's going to be the case with every single buy low that we give you, Adam. So anybody that was drafted in round 5 or before, I don't know if I can name one player that I wouldn't be amped to spend a ton of fab on.
Drake London.
Taking him rounds 1 through 5. No, I'd still spend a lot of
No,
fab
I
on him.
would spend a lot of fab on him. I don't know that I'd be buying low on him. I guess maybe that's a better way to frame it, right? I mean, we had a lot of really disappointing performances, specifically from wide receivers and tight ends, specifically from the passing games in general. Just was a really bad week for passing. Is there anyone that's not just an obvious buy low because they were a first or a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth round pick, and now people are thinking about sitting them or benching them or cutting them? The first name for me is London, just because I'm worried about Cousins. But you guys can weigh in on that, or if there's anyone like, okay, yeah, of course I'm buying low on Marvin Harrison. Of course, CeeDee Lamb or whoever. Nobody's panicking about him, but you get the point, right? Is there anyone that there's?
Are you similarly worried about DJ Moore?
Well, London went 2 rounds ahead of DJ Moore. No, I'm not really. I didn't draft any DJ Moore, but I think I'm actually encouraged a little bit by DJ Moore now that Odunze's out. I'm not quite sure what's the question.
Well, I mean, DJ Moore had bad quarterback play, right?
Yes, but
Sure.
I'm worried about Cousins' health. Like the fact that he's played 1 snap under center is a red flag, I think. Now, Raheem Morris can deny that all he wants, but that's weird. So I personally am concerned about that passing game quite a bit.
Are you worried about Calvin Ridley?
I would be if Hopkins weren't, playing on a torn MCL. But yes, I also think, Jamie, that for me, London should have more trade value because he
There's
went.
definitely more expectations for London, no doubt about it. But they're similar situations if we're going to say quarterback play is the concern. Amari Cooper, same thing.
Yeah, I guess like I don't know if this comes up with Kincaid also. Like adding him off the waiver wire is a no-brainer, and I think 20 to 30% is great. Does it matter at all if it's someone we were drafting in the first 5 rounds strictly based on hope? If they'd never done anything to justify that.
So Marvin Harrison would fit into this conversation.
Yeah, right. No, so lots of guys would.
Yeah, sure.
But does it matter at all if they have ever produced at that level before, or if we were just doing it based on what we projected or thought was going to happen and be different this year?
I think the only way I would say no to that is if I had conviction on said player not being good. And if that were the case, then why was he ranked as a round 5 pick anyway, or round 5 or earlier pick anyway? Like if we were to start blasting Drake London now and say, oh, he's no good, forget about it. Like it's a disservice. I can't say that one bad game spells the end of both Cousins and London. It was a bad game against an amazing pass rush, and Cousins definitely did not look like himself. That was especially problematic for me. But I would expect that the Falcons can fix this, and they'll be able to fix it against easier opponents, and Drake London will benefit.
So you would still buy low on London?
I would buy if any player from the first 5 rounds of ADP showed up on my waiver wire, I would come after them.
Yes.
No,
That's not what we're doing here, though.
If we did the Stefon Diggs test, a guy who was like a late round 5 pick and just came off a 2 touchdown game, you said we'd turn. I'm sorry, you said we turned Diggs
and
into
Olave.
Would you do it for London?
Yeah.
Heath, Jamie, would you trade Diggs for?
Oh, yes, of course.
I'm not saying I wouldn't trade London for Diggs, but I just probably wouldn't do that deal either way.
Okay. All right. Dave, you said you had 5 names. You guys feel free. More buy lows. Dave, go ahead.
Chase Brown is another one who barely got the ball, but when he did get it, I thought he accelerated well. He showed good balance on a couple of his plays. His vision wasn't great. That's something that's a little bit troubling. But if there are people that drafted him, this isn't a round 5 guy, but it's a round 7, 8 guy. I still think he'll end up being the best running back in Cincinnati. It might be because something happens to Zach Moss. Moss looked good too, but Chase Brown's someone that I would try and take a bench player and try and grab and to put him on my bench, hoping that down the line he ends up becoming a thing.
Wouldn't all 3 of the guys that are kind of similar fall in that category? Tajay Spears and Jalen Warren too.
I like Brown the best of them, though. It sounds like Warren's playing through something. Who knows how that'll affect him? And I know what the Titans are saying about
Well, you know what
Spears.
Warren's playing through.
What?
You know what Warren's playing through.
But the hamstring.
Yeah.
So
I hope that's all that it is.
but in terms of the buy low, like, are these guys that you're picking up if someone drops, or you're willing to trade something that's on your roster to go get them?
Let's define buy low.
Buy low would be trades. Buy low is not
Right.
waiver options.
Right. Like,
I don't
we're
know
not
that
going to try and, have people do like some sort of mind meld thing to get people to drop Chase Brown in their leagues. It's not going to happen. But if people are disenchanted with Brown after 1 week, and you've got Tyler Lockett on your bench, in a PPR league, would someone take Tyler Lockett right now? Maybe they lost Puka and Chase Brown's expendable. Yeah, I'd go get Chase Brown. I would take a bench player who didn't show signs of amazing play in week 1 and use that player to get Chase Brown, who also, if you're just looking at the stat sheet, didn't do very much.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you just list some other names, guys? We'll go to sell high after this.
I've got 3 receivers, 2 of which are kind of the same, and then 1 more who had an amazing game. I doubt you're going to be able to buy low on Jaden Reed, so take him out. I've got 4 names, not 5. Terry McLaurin. What?
Buy low on Jaden Reed?
Yeah, it's dumb to put him on there, but it's because of Malik Willis. I think. Listen, I think people are freaking out about Watson and Reed and Jacobs because Jordan Love's going to be out for a while.
Yeah. First of all, Jordan Love's not even on IR yet, so it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to miss 4 games. But no, if you're saying that, take advantage, like buy low on them, you're right. I do think it's a potential. If you believe in it, it's a buy low. I mean, I'm terrified of if he does go on IR, starting those guys for the next 4 weeks. But if you can get past that, then I get it. But all right, sorry, go ahead.
But I agree. Like, saying that a guy who was like the number 1 receiver in fantasy is a buy low is kind of silly. And people that have Jaden Reed and aren't up to speed, they're not going to get rid of him for pennies on the dollar. But they might get rid of Christian Kirk and Terry McLaurin. In the case of McLaurin, I think he's still definitely the number 1 receiver in Washington. I haven't changed my opinion one bit on Jaden Daniels as a passer. And I think Christian Kirk will still end up being the top target getter in Jacksonville.
The only thing that worried me about Washington, like I agree, not changing your opinion on Jaden Daniels as a passer. Their run-pass split in a game that they were behind 3 touchdowns almost the whole game terrifies me. Like, the fact that you were playing catch-up and you threw 24 passes.
That's because he was running a lot, though, right? I mean, so you got to hope that he starts throwing. But it is.
I don't think he's going to stop. I don't want him to stop running. I don't think he's going to.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's exactly what you feared. McLaurin could have had a 70-yard touchdown.
Yep.
But again, he only had four targets, right? So we'll see. I think he usually crushes the Giants, and you got to ring alarm bells if he doesn't do it against the Giants in week 2, I'd say.
33 dropbacks for the Commanders with only 24 passes. So that gives you an idea of how many pass plays they called.
That's not even that much in a game where they're getting crushed.
No, but they ran the ball 30 times. And that includes all the times where Daniels dropped back, got pressured, or didn't see his guy open, and he took off.
Right. Well,
So that tells me they called more pass plays than run plays. But when you've got a running quarterback, you're going to end up with more run plays than pass plays.
Okay. We called Kirk a buy low. You called Kirk a buy low 1 year ago, and it worked out very well after a bad week 1. So any other, Heath, Jamie, you want to throw any other names out there?
No, I had Kirk. That was a good one.
The tight end position.
Yes.
If you were going to
I'm viewing week 1 as like a throwaway week for all tight ends. Like, hit the reset button. Well, I guess you can't do it with Ferguson and Njoku, but hit reset and let's just see what they do in week 2.
None of the top 10 tight ends in ADP reached 50 yards.
Adam, 3 tight ends had 6 or more targets.
That's wild. So if you were going to target one guy, who would it be?
McBride.
Laporta.
I'll say Kincaid.
Okay. All right, let's go to sell high. Who wants to start? Anybody want to start?
I only got 2. And they're
Stefon
both running
Diggs.
backs.
Stefon Diggs for
That's a good one.
Jamie. Okay. Go ahead. Keep going.
Look, he had 6 catches. He scored 2 touchdowns. He was right in the same target range as Nico Collins and Tank Dell, which is probably going to be something similar on a week-to-week basis. As we said Sunday night in the wrap-up show, there's probably going to be 2 guys that are productive each week and 1 guy that gets left out. If Diggs did not score the 2 touchdowns, it would have been a very poor stat line for him. So given his age and how he tailed off last year and the fact that there's 2 other talented players on the roster, if you could turn Diggs into any of the receivers who were drafted ahead of him, whether you are so inclined to, whoever you're so inclined to target, so if you're a London, Olave, Harrison, fan, and you can turn Diggs into one of those guys, I suggest doing so.
Who wants to guess the ADOTs for the Texans wide receivers in week 1?
I know his was 1.5 yards.
But I saw a really good point from Matt Harmon on Twitter about this. Half of his targets happened inside the 10-yard line. It's hard. 3 of his 6 targets were inside the 10. It's very difficult to have a big ADOT when the field's only 10 yards long when you're getting targeted.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so Stefon Diggs coming off the 2 touchdown game, and Heath, how about you? Who are you selling high on?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I would sell high if you can on Joe Mixon, who was the number 2 running back with 33 touches. The 28-year-old back with that much work, you got to get a lot, but I think he's probably going to be close to like RB 12 to 15 rest of the season. Ramondre going against maybe the worst tackling team in the NFL. Basically, what they look like in week 1. I don't think that we're probably going to have a lot of Patriots games with a positive game script.
Yeah.
And
oh my guy.
and then I've got to sell high. But Xavier Worthy was wide receiver 12 on 3 touches. 3 touches is not a great sign, especially considering Marquise Brown is coming back.
Right. So even if he were to start getting a few more touches each week, Brown will come back and could keep that number under 5, let's say.
Okay.
I think those are all good calls. And let's just remind everybody out there, sell high doesn't mean we think this guy's going to suck the rest of the way.
Right.
It means that you've got the opportunity to try and turn them into better players for your team moving forward.
I think Ramondre has just a horrible schedule coming up.
Very much so, yes.
Seattle could be okay. At the Jets, at San Francisco, Miami, Houston. After that, that's like I think I have him in 1 league, and it was great. I liked him in week 1. I kept pointing out it seemed like a good matchup. Cincinnati, bad run defense last year, lost DJ Reader, and it was
he fit the new scheme very well.
He did. He still didn't have a run longer than I think 16 yards. He doesn't really do breakaway runs. He's fine. He's not a bad player. I like Ramondre Stevenson, but this is I think strike when the iron's hot because
it's absolutely great call. I do think though, whenever they're going to face a team that's not going to blow them out. I don't think Seattle's going to blow them out. Then he's going to be good.
He had a 17-yard run. So congratulations to Ramondre on a 2-year it's his 2nd run of more than 15 yards in 2 years.
This got a comment from the chat. Only one I don't agree with is Mixon. I'm kind of I'd rather just hold on to Mixon. I mean, he's going to be the number 1 unquestioned running back. He can't have this many touches. That was insane. Also, just your thoughts on Dameon Pierce as a handcuff, because I just he was so bad last year, so bad in the preseason that if Mixon got hurt, I'm not even sure how good he'd be.
Would it be him or would it be Akers?
Right. Would you even make it a priority to have one of those guys if you roster?
No. I think the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, like you said, you're selling him for something special. You got to get a lot for him, is what you said. So there's an opportunity for a few fantasy managers. It's not going to be across the board, but if the Christian McCaffrey manager goes 0-2, and you're sitting on Mixon coming off 2 straight weeks, or Ramondre coming off 2 straight positive weeks, then you might be able to turn Mixon and something into McCaffrey, or Stevenson and something into McCaffrey. You could see those trades happening.
Yeah.
Rappaport, by the way, saying that McCaffrey is unlikely to play this week against the Vikings. So would you trade Joe Mixon for Marvin Harrison?
If I had the running back depth for it, absolutely.
I am going to.
It's a wild.
I think, Mixon's higher on the trade chart than Harrison right now.
Can I trade him for Chris Olave instead?
2 weeks ago.
I know, but
you can.
That was then. This is now.
All right. Any other sell highs you want to talk about, or shall we move on?
I got 2 more.
Okay.
Aaron Jones and Jerome Ford. Don't expect much for Ford, but eventually he's not going to be the only guy in that backfield for Cleveland. And he was pretty bad until very late in the game.
But I'm not going to sell him if I can't get very much.
Of course, like that's the whole point of selling.
But you said don't
highs.
expect much for him.
I'm not telling you that he's going to be terrible.
I need to get a must-start player to trade him.
No, but if you can,
So Dave, would you sell Jerome Ford to get Chase Brown?
No, I'd rather have Ford right now. But I think that in time, Brown could be better. But for now, it's Ford.
Well, I mean, everybody, I think understands that in time that's going to be the case. If you're selling him, you got to sell him now. And I think, like Keith's point, he just had 18 total touches in a game where they got destroyed. Like, if they're beating Jacksonville, which is would not be a surprise, like 20 total touches for the Browns running back, you'd sign up for that all day long.
Here's one. Would you trade Jerome Ford for DeAndre Swift?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Let's see. Game preview or some things I've been thinking about. What's going to be next? Find out after this break. That's what's coming up. Find out after this break. Yeah, I want to talk about 3 players and get your thoughts on these guys when we come back. Then we'll talk about Miami Buffalo, and we'll do some buy or sell, grade the trade, and I got a fantasy cops I want to throw in as well. We'll be right back.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Some things I've been thinking about. Anthony Richardson is going to be the ultimate league winner. I talked about how last year he averaged more fantasy points per pass attempt plus rush attempt than Josh Allen. And I'm pretty sure than any other quarterback in fantasy. And then he goes and scores 30.1 fantasy points against what we think is going to be a great defense while overthrowing 2 deep balls that could have been like huge plays or touchdowns. Anthony Richardson, Heath, give me your thoughts. He's going to be the ultimate league winner.
Yeah, I think I hope so. His passing was, like you said, overthrowing 2 deep throws. He had some awful throws and one of the best throws I've ever seen. And so that's exactly the type of fantasy asset that he is. He could be an ultimate league winner, and there could be some terribly awful weeks. But I would certainly bet on him being a top 4 quarterback the rest of the season.
His running saves him.
Yep.
So when the throwing is bad, the running will still hopefully level out enough to where you're not getting crushed by it. So there's probably going to be a multiple interception game at some point. That'll be really ugly. But I mean, how many times do we see it in the small sample size last year? You kept bringing up that Houston game, Adam, where you had nearly 20 fantasy points in a quarter.
Yeah.
The games where he was healthy, he was on pace for 800 yards rushing and for the season. It's ridiculous what he could be. Like if he develops as a passer, my God, like imagine the upside. So yes, he could be. That's why he was the most obvious breakout candidate at that position. There was no way around, and maybe just at any position, because if he hits, if he stays healthy, he's going to be in the conversation for the number 1 QB, let alone just top 5.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Baker Mayfield might be good now. I know it was against Washington, but he scored 37.7 fantasy points. He averaged 25 fantasy points per game and 6 point per passing touchdown leagues in his last 7 games of 2023. That included 2 postseason games. He was, I think, the 5th highest graded passer last week by PFF. He was one of 5 quarterbacks that did not have a single off-target throw, according to True Media. I went back, I watched all his throws. I would dispute that. There was one that should have been intercepted, but he looked great. First game with a new offensive coordinator, and they executed beautifully. I mean, it was really... You may not trust me as a guy who breaks down tape, but I would say that anyone who watches every drop back of Baker Mayfield, you'd be really impressed. He was in complete command. Guys were getting open. He was hitting them in stride. It was beautiful. And I know it was maybe the easiest matchup in the league, but different. I don't know. He could be a real difference maker, guys. Dave, what do you think about Baker Mayfield?
I see him with a 3.3% off target rate. So True Media might have heard you and fixed that. But the thing that stands out to me, he was pressured on almost a third of his dropbacks. He was blitzed over 40% of his dropbacks, and he still had this amazing game where, what was his completion rate? It was freaking awesome. It was 80%. He was good on passes of 15+ air yards, and he's got everything's aligning for him. I've talked about this yesterday multiple times, but offensive line is much better now than it was last year. Receiving core deeper, running back core deeper, because not only can he throw to Rachaad White, but Bucky Irving, you'll see him get involved. He's one of the guys I like stashing right now as well. And the defense is falling apart. And so I think this game could get into the 60s with Detroit. That's your game of the week, Adam. And I think Baker Mayfield's going to do just fine. I've got him 10th at quarterback.
Go ahead. It's just a tease.
So you didn't hit the button. Okay. No, I like the main thing I would take away from Baker Mayfield's week 1 is that you should start Malik Neighbors again this week.
Yes.
I hope.
This is a telltale sign for the Giants.
Listen, man.
Don't give up on Daniel Jones just yet.
No. Well, Brian.
Look at the Browns. They gave up on Baker too soon. They spent $230 million, $240 million on Deshaun Watson.
Is this a joke? Is this like a bit?
No, stick with your guy.
No.
Ride it out.
No.
Ride it out.
6 more years. 6 more years. 6 more years.
He's laughing. He's joking. Yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones is capable of doing what Baker Mayfield did against Washington, throwing the
right.
ball.
But if he goes out against Washington and he throws 3 interceptions and it completes 58% of his passes, it's over.
He's done. Yeah. But I would say the offensive line actually did concern me a little bit. He escaped like 4 or 5 sacks. It was one of the most impressive things that Mayfield did. And you said that pressure rate was over 40%. That's pretty high.
The blitz rate was 40%. The pressure rate was over 30%.
Okay.
The pressure rate's pretty normal. The blitz rate is not.
Okay. All right.
One of our former colleagues, Andrew Ballmer, who worked in our production staff for CBS Sports HQ, just sent me a text message that Isaiah likely went for $72 in his league.
Oh, wow. And I thought I spent a lot for him in one of my leagues.
I saw him go for over 50 in one of mine.
Yeah, I got him for 35 in a very competitive league where I had Jake Ferguson and nothing else.
Did you change the baked burger waiver day?
No, I don't think so. Why?
I thought it was Wednesdays last year.
I didn't do anything.
I believe that.
No, I
Believe it or not.
may have.
It was Wednesday last year.
I didn't do that on purpose. What happened was on Sunday waivers were still on and nobody could add anyone. So I took that setting off.
Good job, Commish.
Hey, you got to check the league set. No, I'm sorry. That's on me. That's totally on me. I apologize. Okay, last thing. I don't like being wrong. Nobody likes being wrong. I may have been wrong about Brian Thomas. He only got 4 targets, and it was pretty evenly distributed, and Evan Ingram got almost nothing, but he looks pretty damn good. So your thoughts, I thought it would take a while for him, and I thought he'd be more of a downfield guy. His average route depth was 9.8 yards. Gabe Davis was much higher average route depth. So that's a good sign for Brian Thomas. I feel like he's got a chance to emerge there earlier than I thought. You guys were much higher on him, so it's not a victory lap yet by any means, but I may have been wrong on him. He might be really good. Heath, your thoughts?
You victory lapping. You just said you're wrong.
I'm gonna say it can't be a victory lap.
Well, for you guys, I mean.
We weren't victory lapping.
No,
I didn't even say anything.
I didn't mean that. I'm just saying there's no conclusions yet on Brian Thomas, but it was an impressive start.
Yeah, I don't want
you guys are geniuses.
I certainly want Brian Thomas on my team, and I am very excited about what he could be. I don't want to start him this week against the Browns, but no, I like 4 targets doesn't sound like a lot, but Trevor Lawrence threw 22 passes.
Yeah,
there are some people in Jacksonville that are saying he's so impressive, that he's going to be a legit number 1 guy, like superstar number 1 guy.
I've heard the same.
I mean, he ran past Ramsey for whatever Ramsey still got left. Ran past Ramsey, and Ramsey had to tackle him in the end zone to save a big touchdown.
So, Jamie, I don't think you were on the show for the Brian Thomas versus Malik Neighbors odds setting. Okay. What are the odds that Brian Thomas scores more PPR fantasy points this season than Malik Neighbors? Not starting now, but for the season. So he's got a little head start.
I would have put it probably at like 60-40. Yeah. Neighbors ahead. Like I like Thomas, so right. Whenever you see a situation where a guy's walking into so many vacated targets and has upside, whether it's like Adam was saying, untapped that we didn't know and just being a raw player, or the opportunity to step in and play right away, they like him and they're going to use him. So there was reason to really buy into what Thomas could become. And I agree with you, Adam. I think he's still very raw, which is the scary part.
Yeah.
He's only 20
I'm
years
ready to
old.
flex him. Just
All right.
ready to do that. No
Against
questions.
Cleveland?
Yep. Even against Cleveland.
By the way, Christian Kirk had 2 drops in that game.
Bad ones.
Yeah, bad ones. Could have had some big plays.
And every time Kevin Harlan goes, that calf is bothering him all over the place.
And a throw to Christian Kirk, and he can't. Yeah, he's got.
We had such a great stat, by the way, from our research team. The Dolphins are 7-0 in games called by Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins.
That's awesome. I don't know where they come up with these stats. This is remarkable. All right, let's go, Dave, to Thursday Night Football. Buffalo's at Miami. The history of the 2 quarterbacks in this matchup. Josh Allen has averaged more than 34 points per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues in 12 games against the Dolphins regular season. Tua has scored more than 17.2 points per game against the Bills only once in his career, never more than 22.1 fantasy points. And we're hoping that for Tua's sake that this secondary just doesn't have it. They lost their best player and they were a question mark going into the season. So, all right. Obviously, the Dolphins running back is going to be the big story here. But let's start with Tua Tagovailoa, Jamie. Is he a good start this week?
He is a top 12 quarterback with top 10 upside. You know, I think what you saw from him in week 1, Sunday, give him another touchdown, you'd be thrilled with it. Keep him at the same level. This is probably the floor. He's always going to be in play for 300 yards. He's always going to be in play for multiple touchdowns. The receiving core is healthy, which is great. I don't buy Buffalo secondary being fixed, even though they did a good job in containing Kyler Murray and holding him to under 200 yards passing. So we'll see if those new safeties are going to be tested. So I'm expecting a high-scoring game. I'm expecting both quarterbacks to show up. Tua, if I have him as a starter, I'm sticking with him.
About the 2 quarterbacks in the Detroit-Tampa Bay game versus Tua.
I like those guys better. Higher implied total for those 2 teams. And, you know, Dave said it. The secondary for Tampa Bay is completely obliterated right now. 4 guys are banged up. 3 may miss the game. 3 are almost certainly missing the game. One is dealing with a concussion. So we'll see if he's able to return. And Detroit, while they did a good job in keeping Matthew Stafford from getting multiple touchdowns, he's still allowed over 300 yards. So I think, you know, Baker will have a big day as well.
Yeah, I would go Goff to Baker.
I've got Baker, Goff, Tua.
Same.
Tua's currently outside of my top 12, though. He's on 13.
13. Okay. Jaden Daniels or Tua?
Daniels over everybody we just talked about.
All righty.
Yeah.
So how about the Dolphins running backs? Dave, let's break it down. Neither of them practiced on Tuesday. And what do you got?
So if they practice on Wednesday, I would imagine that they'll both play in the game. There are multiple beat reporters out of Miami that believe that they will both play. And I would imagine similar usage for both of them. Maybe the Dolphins will work in Jeff Wilson a little bit more under that scenario. If they're both gone, then it's going to be Wilson and Jalen Wright. Wright is such a good fit for this offense, but it's going to be his first game. It's going to be hard to trust him in fantasy lineups right away. Definitely should be rostered in every single league. Wilson would probably and reluctantly be the running back that I would go with in that situation. The weird one would be what happens if one of Achane or Mostert are out? What direction would the Dolphins go in, and does that matter? And I think it might, because I don't think that the Dolphins can trust Mostert or Wilson to be in the same role that Achane was in. And so what could happen in that case is Mostert and Wilson would split the rushing downs work. Maybe Wright would get a couple of targets, but I wonder if the tight ends would step up and play a little bit more. They use their tight ends in the slot a lot in week 1. Those guys, Jonnu especially, might end up being the one that gets that matchup against the backup slot corner in Buffalo. So it can go a number of ways, but the first hurdle is seeing who practices on Wednesday. You'll know that information by Wednesday night, and then you can make moves after that.
If we get either one ruled out and you don't need to pick up a starting replacement option, you want to get Jalen Wright if waivers still run on Wednesday and he's still available.
You mean to stash him?
To stash.
100% yes. You don't want to stash Jeff Wilson.
If we don't know the extent of these injuries, no clue. Their offense coordinator, Frank Smith, was talking to the media yesterday, and he said, Frank Smith, right? I think his name.
Yeah, that's his name. He said nothing.
He said nothing. But I think that's telling a little bit because we don't know the extent of the injuries. And that's the scary part of this as a Achane manager and as a Mostert manager is what if this is a high ankle sprain for Achane and he's going to miss multiple weeks? Then Jalen Wright to me becomes easily the priority. But if it's just they're missing Thursday night because it's a short week, then I'd rather pick up Jeff Wilson because he's probably going to get more opportunities.
It's a really tough one here. So if they both play, where do you think you'd have them ranked?
We have them ranked now.
Yeah.
Where are they ranked?
Achane's top 10, Mostert's outside the top 24.
Yeah. Achane is 7. Mostert is 24.
Achane is 3, and Mostert is 29.
Well, yeah, it feels a little risky to have Achane that high with an injury on a short week.
But that's the thing. We don't know.
Well, if he plays, I mean, obviously he's not going to be 100% or he'd be listed as a participant in practice.
Sure.
Are you,
Three's aggressive.
sure with how the NFL injury reports going these days?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I would assume he's got a genuine injury here.
I think if he were fully healthy, you wouldn't bat an eyelash at him being a top 5 running back.
I would if Mostert were playing.
But that's the other part of this, though, is what if Mostert's out?
Oh, if Mostert's out, I wouldn't bat an eye. No, then absolutely. Okay, so if Achane is out and Mostert is in, does he move into like the top 15, Raheem Mostert?
100%.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dolphins wide receivers going to start Tyreek Hill. The other stat of the game that I wanted to give, I talked about the quarterbacks. Well, let's talk about Jalen Waddle. He had a 14% target share in week 1. Now he came through on a deep pass. The Bills, I mentioned this last week when we did the week 1 previews. The Bills have been the best team in football over the last 3 years at eliminating deep balls. And in week 1, they were one of 8 teams that did not give up a completion of 20 or more air yards. Is anybody concerned about Jalen Waddle in this matchup?
Nope.
He's a top 20 wide receiver, but not a top 15 wide receiver for me. I would probably rank him a little higher. And I think Dave has said this something else before. I think Waddle was better when Achane was not available.
Yes.
So if Achane's out, I'd be more excited about Waddle.
Okay. Would you guys go Waddle or Malik Neighbors against Washington?
Waddle.
I have Neighbors higher as of now.
Waddle or how many of the Texans receivers over Waddle?
Waddle
Nico.
over all of them for me.
Nico over Waddle, but that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. How about Waddle or Derrick Henry?
Henry and non-PPR, Waddle and everything else.
Henry and everything.
All right. Start Waddle.
The Henry guy.
I'm the Henry guy. It's the Raiders. Raiders week.
And listen, if they don't practice, we're going to update you on the Dolphins running backs tomorrow. Okay. I don't feel this doesn't have to be the last time we talk about this game. Due to the Bills, Josh Allen.
If Henry stinks against the Raiders, is anybody starting him in week 3?
Who they play?
Against Dallas, it'll be tough to expect much.
If Henry stinks against the Raiders, the victory lap's starting. Like we're going to have the Derrick Henry bust victory lap on Sunday night FFT.
Any hesitation with James Cook this week?
No.
None.
None.
Okay, would you start?
Take Bigsby, the best Jaguars running back, just carving up the Dolphins defense?
You know, that game was so Jaguars. That was the most Jaguar. Like they are a team that does everything they can to lose. They drop passes, they fumble, they can't convert on 4th down. That was such a
From their own 30.
Yeah, I was somewhat of a Jaguars fan. And that was such a Jaguars game.
You're somewhat of a Jaguars fan?
I am. Yeah, I had so much Trevor Lawrence last year that I was very invested in them. And then my son became a Jaguars fan. So I was like, all right, I'll be kind of a Jaguars fan.
That's a good
It's funny. I was doing starts at quarterbacks this morning, and I was looking to see what Dak did against the Browns. So I had Dak's page up, and I had Trevor Lawrence up, and I went to look at the end of the season last year to see how the last time Lawrence had a 20-point game. And for some reason, I clicked on Dak's game log, and I was like, "Oh my God, Trevor Lawrence was amazing at the end of last season."
Like, wow. All right, then Dalton Kincaid's a must-start tight end still, right?
Yes.
Right. Oh, so what about the Bills receivers? Coleman, Shakir, Samuel, Hollins. Anyone starting these guys?
Nope.
None
Flex
are
at
better than
best.
flex.
Shakir, if you need the floor floor play. If you want the ceiling, it's still Coleman.
I'm not starting any of the Bills wide receivers.
There's got to be some floor play jokes that we could
For
make.
sure.
Yeah, right. I'm not into floor play.
I mean, it's not the first time we've said that, right?
I know, but it just the way you said it, like right before you said it, you felt there was an awkwardness. You know,
I was trying to avoid saying it.
Yeah. Would you start if both Dolphins running backs are out?
If Josh Allen does what he did last week again and stays healthy, he's going to be the MVP.
Yeah. If both of or Richardson, but if both of Dolphins running backs are out, would you start Khalil, your favorite Bills receiver, or Jeff Wilson?
Oh, Jeff Wilson.
Wilson.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd probably start both Jeff Wilson and Jalen Wright over any Bills receiver if both Mostert and Achane are out.
I agree.
All right. Okay. DST?
No.
Not in this game.
No. And that's it for Thursday Night Football.
No.
Ah.
Floor play.
Buy or sell from the audience. Buy or sell from John. The Bengals will figure out their offense, and Chase and Higgins will be top 12 and 24 guys going forward.
T. Higgins is a great buy low candidate.
Oh, boy.
Are there teams that have T. Higgins and Puka, and all of a sudden they're scrambling at receiver?
I do.
Are you scrambling at receiver?
Waivers run tonight. I have Waddle as another receiver. I only need to start 2.
Okay.
So I got to check. See
Nope.
what I think. I think I have Brandon Cooks and Rashid Shaheed in that league.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Jamie beat the waiver wire. So are we buying? We're certainly buying Chase as top 12.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am really like at one point months ago, I made a bet with one of our viewers who's in every show. You can comment now if you'd like. Chase versus Nico Collins. This guy is like, Jamar Chase is so overrated. Nico's so much better. This and that. This was before the Stefon Diggs trade. And then the trade happened, and he's like, yeah, I'll make the bet. Nico versus, I don't remember I think it was the St. Jude donation is at stake. I better not lose this. Does that seem like the easiest trade or the easiest bet? All right. From Anthony, buy or sell. Zach Moss is a top 15 running back, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is a flop.
Sell.
No.
Marcus Stroman is a New York Yankee. That was a good thing for Heath yesterday. Buy or sell. Jaleel McLaughlin will be better in PPR than Chase Brown.
So.
Bye.
I'll buy it.
Marcus Stroman is a New York Yankee was the guy's Twitter handle, by the way. Chris says, sell Jamison Williams at the highest of high points, or is this a view of things to come?
He's definitely a sell high candidate just by nature of where you drafted him and his performance. But I do think that not to those heights, but this is a sign of things to come. They love him. He looked great. Ran a bunch of different routes that we saw from him.
Yes.
85% snap share, the first time in his career.
Yeah.
He even topped 75%.
And you
So,
know what
I guess-
the sound is. By the way, I go back to remember Adam, I offered you Jamison Williams for Zamir White in our dynasty.
Oh,
league.
you did?
I'm so glad I'd never sent that.
Are you? Did I decline that?
No, I just said,
Okay.
hey, I was gonna make an offer. And you're like, oh, I'd consider it. And then
Okay.
I wasn't gonna do it.
I did offer it.
If you could turn Jamison Williams into Michael Pittman, would you do it?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think I would either.
I get one, right?
Yeah. Pittman's definitely on my buy low list too, though. Like he had a 42% target share.
He is definitely a good buy low candidate, but I just think that if Jamison Williams hits, he would be better than Michael Pittman.
Could be a total overreaction by me. There's no question about it. But
this is
I think
also-
Adonai Mitchell stood out, and I think he's going to take some more targets away from Pittman. I think the days of double-digit targets for Pittman are gone.
He had 8 on 19 in week 1.
I know. I don't think it's going
But
to
that
be.
was also when Downs not playing.
Right. Downs is eventually going to come back. I think Mitchell's going to stick. I don't think Pierce is going to stick.
Let's go back to buy or sell. Ready?
Yeah.
From Joe, Derrick Henry is no better than a low-end RB2 rest of season.
Can Thomas get that astronaut meme up?
What's the astronaut meme?
The always was.
Always was.
A low-end RB2? That seems like a little... I don't think he's outside the top 20. I don't know.
Not ready to go that far.
I'll buy it after seeing that offensive line last week.
Yeah, but if there was ever a team that you would expect to turn their offensive line around quickly, it would be the Ravens.
From Julio, buy or sell, J.K. Dobbins will be a top 12 running back by the end of the season.
even with all the issues that they've got at O-line coach this year.
So
That is a good point, Dave.
Just be top 12.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to talk about it because it's sad. But
I know it is.
yeah.
And Jake, buy or sell, the number one pick in drafts is cursed.
No.
It's pretty weird. It's every year now. Fantasy
yeah,
have a curse of the number one pick.
I just can't believe. That's one of my other regrets. Like, we had a 28-year-old running back with a calf injury.
And
I'd
apparently,
like to keep taking number one.
the
It
Caps
would have taken some stones to say don't draft Christian McCaffrey, though. And it still might end up being the right move. Like, we can't say it's not like his season's over.
my FFT Open League, my guy Rich, he had the first pick. He took Brees Hall.
Yeah, it looks good right now.
How many leagues did you guys have McCaffrey?
0.
2, with maybe 3.
3 redraft, 2 dynasty.
It's
I
0
haven't-
for me. I might have one in a best ball, but in the 13 leagues I'm in, I never got the number one pick.
I have 3 in redraft. Well, 3, 1 dynasty and 2 redraft.
1 dynasty. Okay. Yeah. I mean, for one of my leagues, it's the one I share with Heath. It's a Superflex league, and we took him. I don't even remember what pick we had, 5th-ish.
I had a hilarious trade offer. Somebody I need to sell. I've got McCaffrey and Kelsey and nothing else. And someone had basically offered me a package with Ayuk and Dalton Kincaid and a draft pick or 2 for McCaffrey and Kelsey. And just like everybody involved in the trade was awful in week 1. Neither one of us want any of those guys anymore.
All right, let's finish with this. The Fantasy Cops are back, baby. Send us your emails, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. This one comes from Alan. Alan says, Dear Jeff, Alex, and Jimmy. These are former 49ers quarterbacks.
Yeah.
My commissioner is a big FFT listener. He does a ton of work for our keeper league. 1 year, 2 keepers. He does all this stuff. Shout out to him for all the work he does. He likes to keep our group text updated on key injuries and news, etc. But 2 nights ago, this backfired, and I wanted to get your take. Hours before the Monday Night Football game, as we all know, Christian McCaffrey was out. The CMC manager was busy at work and did not know this. The commissioner updated the group text thread that CMC was out. The CMC manager pinged the group text saying that he best not be pulling his leg as he didn't have time to check as he was doing a product launch. So the commissioner posted the article as well for good measure. This prompted the CMC manager to switch to his handcuff, Jordan Mason, and with that, he beat his opponent by a narrow margin. More background. The opponent that lost has been trying to quit this league for years because he is a doctor and he can't make moves in real time. He's busy saving lives. This is the guy who lost. Everyone else in our group works in tech and are glued to the computer phone and can make moves much quicker than he can. So it's not fun for him anymore. But every year we drag him back in because we love playing with him. I'm afraid that this situation will give him even more reason to quit next year. Should commissioners be updating groups with real-time news during the season, or is that the responsibility of each player? And is there anything we or the commissioner can do on this situation to make it right for the one who feels like he got shafted, but the other one who got help, but the other guy got help? Also, shout out to Alan's 11-year-old son, Reed, who listens to our podcast and won his league last year. Woohoo! Shout out, Reed.
I guess the question would be is, if the commissioner is doing this all the time, even the doctor has the same information that everybody else does, right?
Yeah, the doctor's got the info, but he can't do anything with it.
It sounds like the commissioner's just trying to make the league more fun and be a good commissioner. And like, stop whining, Doc.
Oh, Heath.
Man, saving lives, Heath.
Yeah, I'm not really. I don't have a problem.
There's really nothing you could do here. I mean, if he's consistent, if the commissioner is consistent in doing this all the time,
yeah,
then everybody's benefiting from it.
We should all be lucky to have a commissioner like this.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not doing this.
I don't know.
You just changed the day on waivers without even telling anybody.
Sorry about that. I don't really know what happened there. I didn't do it on purpose.
I'm glad Thomas is up to date.
Was
on
it
these
someone
things.
you wanted that you didn't get?
I was just surprised when waivers ran. I didn't even look.
Thomas for commissioner.
Oh, I vote for that.
I think you should have to reset the moves that happened last night.
I don't think I could do that.
Of course you can.
No, that's not fair.
That's not fair.
It's not fair to the people. Now you know their bids.
And
This is tough. This is a real screw up on my part. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
You're part of this league. Did you know that waivers changed to Tuesday?
No, I just pretty much do all my claims on Tuesday because I can't remember which leagues are Tuesday or which leagues are Wednesday.
Dude, be a grown up, Jamie. That's what grown ups do. They do them all. They do them all on Tuesday. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We will talk to you tomorrow with start or sit for the AFC home games. But remember to check out CBS Sports Network at 1 p.m. Eastern to catch another edition of Fantasy Football Today. See ya.